Good morning. This is Richard Cheng with the Sativa Segment, episode 31. We have two interesting guests from Austin, Texas that we'll introduce in a little bit. But before we get started, this episode is fueled by Ritter Spencer Cheng. It's a law firm based here in Addison, Texas. I'm part owner of the law firm, and it's a full service business law firm that will service a variety of needs, everything from corporate M&A to litigation to healthcare, intellectual property, and so forth. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, go to the website, ritterspencercheng.com. Welcome, Alwyn and Ashley.
Hello.
The team at Higher Innovation, they drove all the way from Pflugerville, Texas, not Austin, but Pflugerville, Texas. And this team has just, quite honestly, I've never had an episode on the Sativa Segment that makes a similar type of product as Higher Innovation. And they have a collaboration with the Mike Tyson team. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But let's get to know you, both of you, a little bit better. You're a married couple. This is a husband and wife venture. I don't know if I could do that if I was married, but hey, more power to you. When you're working with your wife, when you're working with your husband, there's got to be some interesting work and, couple dynamics there. But if you can make it work, great, So let's get to know you guys a little bit better. Ashley, are you from Texas? Are you from the Pflugerville area?
I'm from Texas. I grew up in Plano, so just up the street.
Me too.
So grew up in Texas. I did a brief stint in San Francisco when I was running a lifestyle e-commerce gifting brand.
Okay.
So was out there. That's really what got me started in the startup world. And so we actually moved that business in 2016 from San Francisco to Austin. And that's what brought me down to Austin. And then we've been up in Pflugerville since 2021.
Okay. So you didn't always work with your husband?
Did not always work with my husband. No, that's very new.
Okay. So you've historically been in corporate America.
Yes.
And you got your education here in Texas as well?
I went to the University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And then
Boomer Sooner.
Yeah. Started my career at the marketing arm, which is an advertising agency in downtown Dallas. So worked on brands like Frito-Lay, other brands, Dr. Pepper, Snapple Group, or whatever it is now. I don't know. And then started working in startups in about 2014.
Now, you've never been in the cannabis industry before.
Correct.
And historically, you've been in, I guess, big box retail, mainstream brands, and so forth.
Yeah. So when I moved into the startup world in 2014, it was how I started working in startups and was running a e-commerce lifestyle gifting brand called Packed Party. And so from there, it really helped me understand how manufacturing works, because we were manufacturing our own products, how distribution works into big box retailers like Neiman Marcus, Dillard's, Walmart, et cetera. And then once I left there, just was at a few different startups running day-to-day operations and growing, did a little bit of M&A as well.
Oh, very cool. So let's move on to your better, or not, I wouldn't say better half, but your other half, right? She's your better half.
There it is.
So, you created this Higher Innovation idea was really yours. It sounded like, just from our past, our previous conversation, is that you come from a building, manufacturing, technology world. Is that correct?
Yeah, more so just technology than anything else, right? So I have a background in technology. I worked for Hewlett Packard for a few years as a storage specialist over there. Pre-sales engineer for a large software company before actually coming to, hopping into the cannabis landscape itself. But essentially helping customers with understanding the technology landscape, a lot of hybrid cloud, a lot of multi-cloud type solutions, and understanding, the role and importance of data as it plays in our day-to-day lives, right? So background in big tech, originally from Arkansas. So military brat, kind of moved around quite a bit.
Where in Arkansas? I'm just curious.
So just outside of Little Rock, in a small town called Jacksonville. It's actually the home of Little Rock Air Force Base, which is the largest C-130 base in the world. So
I spent a brief childhood stint in Jonesboro, Arkansas.
Okay, I feel bad for you, but
well, I felt bad for myself now that you say that. So I don't really have too many memories of it, and none of them were really all that fond. But I do remember it was very lush. It was very green.
Yeah.
So
Arkansas is beautiful. It's the natural state, you know.
yeah, I was too little to remember it, but we did briefly live there when I was a kid. So where did you get your education, Alan?
So I went to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock.
Okay.
So that's what I went to school. I would actually have a marketing degree, right? So essentially, I went to school like, okay, I need a piece of paper. What's the easiest degree I can possibly get, right? I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but of course, the way that transfer credits work when you're trying to go to another university, they're like, okay, it's going to be another 120 hours to graduate. I was like, that's not going to work out too well. So marketing is essentially the path that I went down. Graduated, got into technology sales at that point. Fell in love with technology, dove deeper and deeper into it, and here we are today working on, AI ML applications for our products. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. So you briefly mentioned AI. So just, help me understand in my ignorant mind how AI is being utilized in the industry of cannabis and how that crossover is working right now.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's actually a huge portion of what we're seeing as far as the new trending solutions out there, right? Everybody wants to understand how cannabinoids actually affect them, how different terpenes affect them.
Yep.
We're trying to work on some of that ourselves as well. And so understanding the different profiles and having large data sets allows people to make better informed decisions about what they're actually putting in their bodies, right? So when we start talking about AI in cannabis, we're starting to essentially, you can essentially have an infinite landscape of different variables which you can choose, right? And so it's almost like a choose your own adventure at that point. I think we need the cultivator space to kind of catch up just a little bit, but we're kind of working with what we have from just the overall data perspective, right? We can analyze COAs and kind of get information there, but we need a lot more testing and regulation to actually have an all-encompassing solution, I think, for the next 10, 15 years down the road.
Can you give me an example, like just walk through like a real life example of how AI is being implemented so that we are making more informed decisions, as you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So say you tried a new type of cannabis for the first time, right?
Yep.
This strain, you're not necessarily familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
You realize the dominant terpene is caryophyllene or mercerin, right? So you actually can, understand, how did I feel? How did that strain make me feel this time? Right. If it made you feel great, okay, great. Notate that, right? We can actually use that data to then better inform the next decision you make about cannabis, right? So if you need something, or let's say you had an adverse reaction to one of the terpenes that were within that cannabis plant, right? So you can actually start driving yourself away from those types of flower, right? So it allows you to better the overall experience for yourself, the individual, that way.
Okay. And you have currently primarily two products with higher innovation. One, let's talk about the one that's in beta testing. I think that's I hate to say it. I like the other one, but the one in beta testing is a little bit more exciting for me to talk about, which it's being released next month.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And
so it's called a Duet. The Duet is a piece of machinery that Higher Innovation created.
Right.
I'm assuming you're the one that's, as you would say, in that little room or in the closet doing, whatever it is that you do while she's running the company for you. Is that utilizing AI at all?
That's the plan, right?
Okay.
So essentially, we're trying to build an entire framework called the consumption diagnostic, in which case we allow you to inform the blending decisions to be made behind the cannabis, right? So the words indica, sativa aren't necessarily like real words, right? We use them as descriptors for general effects of cannabis, but they're not actually how cannabis should be categorized, right? And so when you start talking about blending together cannabinoids, it's important that you actually blend together like for like types of strains, right? So if you're blending together THC flower with CBD flower, you want to make sure that those the flower types are somewhat identical or complementary to each other, right? Okay. So essentially it's leveraging the entourage effect in the most direct way possible.
Yeah. So let's pretend the box is right there in front of me. Help me understand and explain to me how it works. Everything from the flower to, I guess, it rolls too. It creates a roll. So if the box was in front of you, how would you use it? Yeah.
So it's as simple as, getting the flower that you prefer, right? So hopefully by this point you've investigated what works best for you and your body, right? And so you have a couple of different hoppers in which the flower actually goes in. So you don't actually have to touch the flower itself, right?
Okay.
Think of it kind of like a really fancy espresso machine, right? With the beans already on top.
Yep.
With the beans of the flour, of course.
Yep.
So what you do is essentially you hop into the choose your own adventure screen, if you will, right? So the main screen there, and it allows you to select, okay, what size joint would you like to make today, right? 0.25, 0.5, or 1 gram, right? And from there, you can actually say, okay, do I want to blend these strains together, or do I just want a 1-to-1, or excuse me, all one side or the other side, right? Because again, you have dual chambers there. Right. And so if you wanted to blend, you can select, okay, I want a 50-50 blend, 75-25, 90-10, whatever that is. And then you hit go, and the machine's actually going to grind the flour. It's going to then blend it, and then it's going to pack it into the cone for you in about 30 seconds to a minute. So you're literally going to push probably 2.5, 3 buttons, wait 30 seconds to a minute, and you'll be presented with the perfectly packed joint that you can actually then consume to, medicate.
Wow. It's like the Keurig of cannabis, man.
Exactly.
So let's shift over to Ashley for a little bit. You guys have a collaboration with the Mike Tyson team.
Yes.
I've looked at your website. It says Mike Tyson, or it says technically Tyson 2.0. My understanding is that it's a licensing arrangement. Yep. So how did you decide to go down that path to collaborate with the Mike Tyson team? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So back in July of last year, we were at Champ's trade show.
Okay.
Showcasing the duet, as well as we took our second product called the Hot Box to the show to get just some initial feedback. We had taken it to Hall of Flowers earlier in the year. People liked it. Since that show at Hall of Flowers, we had made some changes. So took it to Champs just to see if people liked it, get consumer feedback. People liked it. People started placing orders for their dispensaries and smoke shops to sell to their consumers. Okay. And then we were introduced to the Tyson team. So how they work is Mike wants to have a big role in the cannabis industry. He's very fond of plant medicine. And so they were interested in the product because what it does is it's an air purifier specific for cannabis. So it will eliminate smoke and odors in small spaces. He and his portfolio doesn't have any electronic devices, and they're always trying to find something new that they can offer to their customers. Yep. So we were able to talk with their team, get a sample over. Because we manufacture ourselves and we're in control of that, we're able to also move very quickly, and that team moves incredibly fast. So we were able to, meet them in July, get a sample in August, and then we launched at MJ BizCon with them in December. And we decided to work with them because as a new company, it's a way to get a little bit of validity of the product, and us as a business to have the name like Mike Tyson and Tyson 2.0 behind us. It just allowed more eyes on our product, more sales. And then of course that just validity about that. Okay, we're a legitimate company as we're new, first time to be in the cannabis industry. And so that always helps.
Now, you manufacture the parts yourself and everything,
Yes.
or are you buying parts from third parties to put it together?
Yeah, so about 95% of the product for both products are manufactured at our warehouse in Pflugerville. We get some components overseas and nearshore a couple pieces, but for the most part, it's all manufactured by us.
Now, who designed it? There's obviously a difference between manufacturing, putting it together, and designing it. Who designed the actual product itself?
That would be myself. So I designed it, put pen to paper. It took probably.
So you're the mad scientist behind the whole thing.
Yeah. Like we said, like to sit in the closet,
Yeah. Or did she lock you in the closet?
We have a lot of air purifiers taken apart, coffee machines taken apart at our house. Oh yeah, to get to where we are today. Yeah.
So so you manufactured the parts, you put it together, you designed it. How many rounds of testing did you have to go through and say, okay, this part is fitting here, but this part doesn't really fit, or this one just aesthetically looks horrible, so we should do this instead?
Right. I mean, that's been, it's a constant struggle to kind of find the right balance of form over function, right? Yeah. But I think for the most part, we went through probably 6 or 7 different iterations of the hot box before we actually landed on this one. And it's actually funny because the one we thought we were going to roll out, that was number 6. Turned out we needed to tweak that just a little bit more, and then it turned into number 7, right? So the benefit of kind of what we're doing from a manufacturing perspective is using additive manufacturing is we're able to make changes very, very quickly. Right. So it didn't take very long for us to go through those 6 different revisions as far as testing and validation goes. So we're actually able to get the product to market in roughly 18 months. So it was pretty good.
So have you done a cost analysis of, this is how much it takes to make a unit versus this is what we're going to sell it for? I'm assuming you have.
Right.
Are you able to disclose in general what that looks like?
I think we'll keep that one a little tighter to the vest,
Okay.
of course.
Okay.
But I will say
Hey, my
that-
job as a podcaster is I'm gonna like a good journalist. I'm gonna try and extract as much information out of you. It's up to you how much you want to protect.
Absolutely. I will say that, using additive manufacturing definitely changes the paradigm as far as what people are traditionally used to, which is, large injection molded from overseas, just plastic, right? So we were actually able to make it very efficient from an assembly perspective, just by kind of changing some of the dimensions of the actual device itself, right? So with traditional injection molding, you can't necessarily, there are certain shapes that just don't work for injection molding, right? But with 3D printing, complexity is free, right? So it actually allows us to assemble the box in roughly 5 to 7 minutes versus having to put, 15 to 25 different screws in a piece of plastic.
Yeah, and another benefit of it is that, as a self-funded company to date, additive manufacturing allows us to control our cost a lot more, and that you don't have to be out. He said we're on version 7 right now of the hot box. If we had to injection mold and paid for mold fees and samples and production units for each of those other units, it would kind of bankrupt a company. If you're not well funded, that's incredibly challenging. And so leveraging additive manufacturing, you can actually tweak in real time everything that you need to be doing, get it to where you want it to be, and then also get consumer feedback. So we have customers all the time being like, hey, could it do this? Could it do that? And that's what you want is real-time feedback from the people using the product. And so it allows us to have kind of a just-in-time manufacturing model that makes it for customers to be giving us the solutions to our problems, and allows us to control our cost a little bit more. But being made in America does have its limitations on cost. So margins aren't great necessarily as, if I were to be buying it overseas. But again, it's an American made product, and we're able to employ people at our office and provide those jobs and give back to our community.
Now, you said, Alan, that you get some of the parts from overseas, but it doesn't sound like the majority or even more than 10, 15%,
right? Because
it's mostly domestic. So, is it fair to say that because most of your parts are domestic, the tariffs aren't, it's probably unlikely going to raise the cost of these products as much as otherwise it could.
Yeah, I'm going to kick the tariff thing over to Ashley. That's her favorite topic.
It's my favorite topic.
Okay.
We will be impacted by the tariffs.
You will.
We're seeing it on both sides, not only on the cost of goods side, but the distribution side. So I'll touch on the cost of goods side first. So, something that we don't make in the U.S. is textiles. We offshored that a long time ago. There's great nearshore companies that can do it in Mexico, but they're getting components from China to make the product. So for instance, the bag that our product ships in, we cannot make, it's impossible for that to get made here. And so we're getting tariffed. We'll experience tariff increases on that. Even if we want to nearshore it, which is something that we've been exploring, not only do we have the potential tariffs from Mexico, but they're getting tariffed from China to get the components. So you kind of have a double tariff situation. Right now, we're able to control our cost. We have enough inventory. We're not going to raise our price, but it's something we have to monitor. What is, I think, even the more concerning piece for us that we're working through right now is because of the tariff conversation, we should not be limited to only being able to sell domestically in the US. And we, candidly lost out on a PO in Canada because they said we're not going to import American made goods anymore until the tariff situation is resolved. That's really challenging when you're a new business trying to enter, or even just an established business. So that is the harder component for us, is just, we don't have distribution channels and distributors in Canada or Europe. It's something that we're working on right now, but limiting our ability to sell only in the US is just absurd. And so that's
how many countries are you selling in right now other than US currently?
Yeah. So, we're selling in the US, we'll ship to Canada, Greece, the UK, Australia. We can ship D2C anywhere from in-store retail right now. Because we just launched in December, it is the US, but we will be having units in Europe through a distributor this summer. They'll hit the market.
And you briefly mentioned Hotbox because we've talked about the Duet. I don't think we really went over what the Hotbox really is. My understanding is the Hotbox is an air purifier. It eliminates smoke. So really, in the most simple form, the Hotbox, if you put it in a room as you're consuming, it clears the room of smoke, and so you don't have to smell the secondhand smoke. Am I correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so Well, you're correct to a degree, right? So sorry.
Here comes the technology. He's always got to
Exactly.
correct. Let's correct the layperson here.
So our entire thesis is essentially like solving all the problems we possibly can, right? So cannabis odors is still a large problem that needs to be solved. There's still certain stigma and certain taboo around cannabis odors, no matter where you are, right? And of course, being in Texas, where cannabis is still, very much state and federally illegal, it's a large concern, especially when you start talking about social equity and social justice, right? And so trying to tackle the odor associated with cannabis was, I think, one of the hardest things that we've undertaken, right? Even harder than the duet route, more specifically, because there's so many different factors, right? You have the type of flower you're smoking, right? You have what are you smoking it out of, right? What are you blowing it into, right? So all these different types of things, but still a very large problem to solve. And so essentially we, like Ashley said, we took apart, 15, 20 different air purifiers to figure out exactly, what needs to change to make this work better, right? Because essentially you can go out and buy a $900, $1,000 air purifier to set in the corner of your room. That's gonna eliminate the smell of smoke, right? But it's not accessible to a lot of people either. Right. And so we wanted to make something that was small, compact, and at a lower price point than that, but also still did the job. And so instead of blowing the smoke into the room, right, you blow the smoke into the device. Think of it kind of like an auto sploof, if you will. Right, where it just captures all the odors associated with cannabis. There's 3-layer filter, HEPA particulate filter. There's a carbon film pre-filter, and then 2 inches of activated carbon on the back end of that, and that's where it gets most of its from. Right.
Would you say that your air purifier or the filter is more effective in eliminating the smell than if I were to go to Target or somewhere to just get a regular purifier?
Oh, 1,000%. 1,000%. That's essentially where it started out, right? So like being in Texas, owning a cannabis company, like how we got to the hot box was after we had one engineer drop off a box of parts on our doorstep for the duet and essentially said like, hey, relationship is over at this point. It was like, okay, well, this sucks. What's the next problem we can solve, right? And it's like, okay, the odors associated with cannabis. And so I had been, trying for years to solve the odor issue with cannabis. And you're doing all these different things. You're switching to vapes, and now you're finding out vapes are just absolutely harmful for it. Like they're terrible, right? All the heavy metals, turning liquid to gas directly into your lungs doesn't necessarily make the most sense either. And so flower is still the predominant way that a lot of people like to smoke. I love smoking flower more so than anything, right? So to have something that actually worked with flower, essentially we needed to make something custom. And I was like, okay, well, I think other people would benefit from this as well. So the hot box came about. It's really ultra portable, comes in a smell-proof bag as well. And
it's a little bit smaller than Duet, right? It's a little bit more compact.
It's like a small toaster. Okay, if you will, about 7 by 7 by 8.
Okay,
is the size of the hot box.
And are you selling the hot box overseas as well, like in Europe and Greece and Canada?
Yep, we'll be in a distributor. We'll get their units this summer, and so then it'll be available in most European countries, but we can ship anywhere globally.
Okay, and most of your just from previously talking to you, most of your demographic, your clientele it's B2C, but you can also sell to retail stores B2B as well. So you're pretty flexible in that in from that standpoint.
Yep, we can work with anybody. So for the hot box, we can sell direct to consumer. We can be in local smoke shops, dispensaries, wherever it is. In theory, we can be in big box as well. So hopefully,
that's the
we're
dream,
able,
right?
hopefully we can, see it on those Target shelves or anywhere like that, because at the end of the day, it's an air purifier. It just works really well for smoke. So whether that's cannabis smoke and odors or even cigars, so it can work in cigar lounges. We were just up in New York, and they have a bunch of lounges popping up in New York. And so
I went to the coolest cigar lounge when I was in New York this past January.
Yeah, and they just have them sitting in there, like the hot box on the tables, because it supplements the other air purifiers that they have. So it can live in a lot of different places.
So you have the Duet, you have the hot box, you're targeting distribution, retail, consumers. What are some of the challenges so far? Because, like Alvin said, cannabis is still stigmatized. What are your current challenges? What are some of your anticipated challenges moving forward?
I mean, there's all kind of challenges from financial, trying to like bootstrap a company essentially, to regulatory challenges as well. I mean, once we get the duet to a place where we want to start seeking FDA approval, I'm sure we're going to run into some challenges around, blending different types of flower together at scale. But we're working on, kind of trying to stay as compliant as possible with metric integration per se, right? And kind of some of those things. But outside of that, I mean, the challenges are essentially just, how do we get mass adoption, right? How do we start changing the way people consume cannabis, right? So a lot of our target demographic is medicinal users, especially for the duets. CBD is more effective when it's actually paired with THC, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. And that's how we're trying to inform consumption. And that's what we start talking about, like a lot of smart consumption is what we say, right? How do you make consumption more appropriate for all types of users of cannabis, right? Not just the people that just want to get high or people that are just smoking CBD. Like, how do you elevate that experience and make it to where people can have, the experience that they set out to when they first started smoking cannabis? And that's what we're trying to do.
Are there any particular states you sell like better in versus others?
I think right now, New York, Colorado, Indiana.
Okay.
We have a lot of mixtures of states, right? So like Texas is a great market as well, because like hiding cannabis odor is, there are different challenges with that legally and,
Right.
financially, right? So that's a lot of where we're kind of seeing a lot of traction is. But for the most part, all over the US at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you briefly mentioned medicinal. Ashley, you and I talked about the the American Nurses Cannabis Nurses Association. Tell me about that again. And the duet is essentially, as we previously talked about, it blends. You can select different blendings, and you can choose how much of the ratio between CBD and THC. How is it being used for clinicians and when they administer or help assist in the administration of medicinal cannabis in certain states?
Yeah. So right now, how it works is if you have a medical card and you're working with your provider, whether that's a nurse or your doctor, they're telling you, try these blends together, your hand journaling. It's very like tactical. And a lot of times if then you go in with your prescription just by state, or you go to your local dispensary, a lot of times what you need is not necessarily available in a pre-roll, or the flower, you've got to go to multiple places for it. And so it's a pretty clunky experience. And so what we're able to do with the duet is say, hey, if you don't know how to roll, or you don't have the dexterity, you don't know how, you don't want to, but that's how you want to consume, you can use the product to do that, and then give that real-time feedback back to the clinician to say like, hey, I tried this, it worked. I tried this, it didn't work. And I started adjusting the ratio. So then you're just getting better, more real-time data to start fixing whatever ailment or need that you have to be taking the plant medicine. Yeah.
And I'll say like, so the duet came about because, we are trying to solve, I think, the biggest problems you can possibly solve. Like the opioid crisis in America is what we're trying to tackle with the duet specifically, right? And so when you look at, again, blending together CBD with THC, it becomes very important to nail down, what is going to work for you when it comes to pain management, right? I think like 70% of Americans are like in some form of pain, right? And so like, especially older Americans, which don't necessarily want to roll, right? And so that's a large market. We're just trying to keep people away
incapable of rolling because you mentioned dexterity.
Yep.
Exactly. So we're just trying to help people use plant medicine as effectively as possible.
Yeah. No, it's it would be kind of cool. I'm just thinking out loud here, is that if you had the technology to have some type of communication channel between the device and the recommending physician, and to communicate in real time. Because
Yep.
If the physician is writing a recommendation for this type of ratio, a 70-30 ratio, maybe you need for that for maybe on the third day or whatever adverse effect that the patient is having, maybe they need to adjust that. Well, how do you adjust that? Is there a way to communicate with the physician to make that adjustment in real time? That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I notated that in my head.
I just gave you a new idea for the duet.
No, we like it. Coming soon with the software
I mean,
side.
it's important for us to start to have these conversations about better outcomes when it comes to medical cannabis, because I mean that's how the industry got here today in the first place, is through the medicinal landscape. I mean, we're just so fortunate that people found some loopholes in the Farm Bill in 2018, and now we have more research that we're able to leverage for the advancement of medical cannabis as well. So
what's funny is I fell into this industry in 2013 through the healthcare side, like I previously told you. So historically, I've represented a lot of nursing homes, assisted living facilities. And the contradiction is this, I find, is that you have an entire demographic who are usually generally older Americans who grew up in the reefer madness era. And, and there's a lot of history behind it with Victor Licata and racial tensions with cannabis, and there's like that whole generation of anti-cannabis. But then if you walk into, like, depending on what state you're in, if you walk into like an assisted living facility or like a nursing home, and some of the biggest consumers nowadays is grandma who's 85 sitting in the back porch just puffing away because she may have cataracts, she may have pain, she may have certain ailments to where, quite frankly, grandma doesn't really care, right? She just loves the fact that this plant medicine can help her with her, her leg pain or whatever pain that she's dealing with. And I think the consensus is like, hey, listen, if you're going to come and arrest me from this assisted living home being 85, come and do it, right? And it's just kind of funny to me because the same demographic that's historically been so anti-cannabis, they're some of the biggest consumers at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, what we've found is that's why education is so key and kind of helping to unlock that stigma around cannabis. And that's like two big things that we're focused on, right? Because if you have the stigma around it, people aren't going to want to do it, or you're going to feel the shame, you're going to hide from it. But you should be sharing what's working for you. Just like you share, like I'm a big wine person. If I find a good bottle of wine, I'm going to tell my girlfriends, oh my gosh, I tried this great bottle of wine. You need to have it. If you're in pain, you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm so scared to tell so-and-so who I know also suffers from what to try a cream, something as simple as a cream all the way through, consumables. So helping to like get rid of that stigma and then provide the education component so people know how to have the conversations, where to go. I think that's why it's so important that these bud tenders they continue to just be so educated. They can have the conversations on the terpene profiles. Yeah. What I'm going to do is going to be so different than my mom or Alwyn or you. Right. And that conversation just has to keep happening. And I think as we continue to get that education moving and that stigma's gone, and so, so-and-so sees their grandma smoking or using a cream, they're gonna be like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. No, grandma likes to consume. So let's shift the conversation a little bit to higher innovation as a whole. You're a growing company. You started in 2022. My understanding is that it's a family-owned business, obviously, but you are looking for investors. And so far at this point, you've really kind of just tapped into friends and family, that initial seed money, right, to kind of get you started. Are you actively seeking investors at this point?
Yep, we're actively seeking investors.
How much are you trying to capital raise?
We like to capital raise $1 million.
$1 million. And how did you determine that you need $1 million?
Because there's kind of two sections for how the funds would be dealt with. And that is technology build on the software side, especially around the duet. Okay. So just determining, what the cost of that's going to be to build out, maintain, as well as because we're a US manufacturer, we also have manufacturing needs. So equipment and other pieces and just general innovation. So we're kind of parallel pathing to components of our business at the same time to help us get to that $1 million, because we want to make sure that we can deliver on both aspects, deliver great manufactured American made goods to our consumers and still innovating on the software and technology side to get new products out the door and get the duet to a fully commercial place.
So it's for growth.
Absolutely.
Overall. Yeah. And how much I guess how much time do you have to raise the $1 million, or are you up against a timeline right now?
We're not up against the timeline. It's just a matter of, speed. So the sooner we get the funds, the faster we can accelerate growth, whether that's getting the duet instead of it being Q1 of 2026. Maybe it's something that we're able to push out a little bit earlier, Q4 of this year. So it just is a time game for us of speed. But, having the hot box in market, it's allowing us to generate revenue. So we're not having to keep putting money back into the business. Personally, it's something, that we're able to use revenue to move the company forward growth-wise. Any incremental investment just helps speed the growth.
Got it. And do you have a pitch deck?
We do have a pitch deck, yes.
Send me your pitch deck.
I will send you your pitch deck.
Well, that's so you are definitely in growth mode. And so what are we looking at in 3 to 5 years from now? Where do you anticipate you to be in 3 to 5 years from now?
I'm not allowed to answer this question.
I was looking to you to give the answer.
No, because I think in 5 years, if we're able to succeed on the fronts that we want to succeed on and are actually starting to inform some of the consumption decisions people are actually using, I think we could be, one of the larger cannabis technology companies in the North Americas anyways, just based on kind of where our device actually sits, right? So when you look at, of course, with the Duet, at inception is a medical device, right? But it just so happens that, we made the Swiss Army knife of pre-roll machines, right? So we have my mechanical engineer is absolutely fantastic. He's a world champion roboticist. And so he essentially,
kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Exactly. So I had the general concept of what I wanted the Duet to look like, right? I want it to be about this big and I want it to serve these functions. And because he's not a cannabis consumer, he's able to use data and science instead of just, theoretical knowledge at that point, right? And so he actually created this device to help essentially get the flower into the pre-roll, because that's actually the number one problem that most pre-roll manufacturers have, is actually getting the flower into the roll, right? So you can weigh it all you need to, but actually getting it into the pre-roll without clogging is a huge issue. And so because we actually have a hopper design where actually the cannabis is fed through the top, it allows you to essentially put infinite amounts of cannabis in the machine, right? So the device can roll up to 1,000 joints a day per device, right? And so as we're looking to not only capitalize on the medicinal cannabis market, we're also looking to capitalize on the production market as well by rolling out networks of these duets, right? So 1,000 pre-rolls a day doesn't sound like a lot, but that's per device, right? And so if you have 5 devices in your facility, that's 5,000 joints a day. If you need more than that, get more devices, right? As well as kind of working on a hot swappable model as well. So with a lot of like the larger pre-roll manufacturers, you have this big, $500,000 machine. You have a $100,000 service contract every year. Your break fixes, when it breaks, we'll send somebody out there. We only have 2 service techs. It'll be 2 weeks before we can get out to service your machine. Now with us, it's essentially, one of the devices went down. Okay, one's on the way. Send us that one back, right? So they're just easy to plug and play that way. And so when we start talking about 5 years down the road, I think it's going to be interesting to see. But I do think we're gonna start seeing a lot more blending of cannabinoids at the very least.
You know what's interesting about your devices? It just hit me as we're having this discussion. Your company, your devices are not limited the same way that a lot of businesses in the cannabis industry is limited, and I'll tell you why. It's because there are other international markets that's still developing that cannabis market. For example, Germany, they historically have been very restrictive. In the last couple of years, they've kind of opened up the market. And you have that whole Asia play that has been very restrictive historically. Now, do I know that they're going to open up? I don't know that. And you don't know that. We don't know that. But if they do, that's an entire market play that you have. But furthermore, let's just say today that cannabis completely goes to crap. There is no cannabis market anymore, which I don't think will be the case. You still have all the cigar lounges that you mentioned, right? You have all these other different avenues that you can potentially play in if everything went to crap today. I think that's what makes your company or your concepts a little bit different than some of the other businesses I've had on the show. if you will. So, as we wrap up, tell me about your 2025 plans. Where are you going to be? Where are you going to showcase your products? We met at MJ Biz in 2024. That's obviously not the only conference out there.
No.
Where are you going in 2025?
Yep. So we will be at Champs in June.
Okay.
In Chicago. And so we will be in the CKZ distribution booth there.
Okay.
Who's a distributor here in Texas. They're in Dallas. And then we at July will be at Champs back in Vegas, hopefully in a very fun way.
Okay.
Outside of, if you were there in February and you were displeased, hopefully we have a solution coming your way. I can't share too much right now, but we'll be at Champs.
You're going to have this smirk like you're keeping something from me.
We are, but it'll be fun. You'll know exactly what it is when you see it. Hopefully we can get that approved. So we'll be at Champs in July, and then we'll for sure be at MJ Biz in December again. And then Champs is coming to Austin. So it's going to be the first time that Champs is coming to Texas.
Oh, wow.
And September. So September 9th, 10th, and 11th. So we'll definitely be at that show, having an event of some sort. So we'll be there. And then I'm sure a bunch of other.
Can you educate the viewers that's watching the show what Champs is? So
Champs is the largest trade show for smoke shops and dispensary owners. So it's where they come to get all of the product and test out new stuff and see what is on the market to bring to their consumers.
Got it. Okay. Any last words of inspiration, Alwyn, on if other people wanted to start up a company similarly to yours, or maybe not direct competitors, but just any words of inspiration for startups in the cannabis industry?
I mean, you just got to do it. That's it. If you're going to do it, do it.
So you stole the Nike slogan, basically.
Well, yeah, exactly. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't have any reservations, put all you have into it. And, you got to take chances in life. And that's one of the things about being an entrepreneur is, kind of taking those chances. And, you may have favor on the back end, you may not, but there's only one way to find out. Right. So,
yeah. And we kind of say do it your way, whether that's how you're consuming cannabis, but also if you're going to start your business, start it, like Alan said, just do it, but also do it your way. You don't have to follow.
I actually like that. Yeah. Don't just do it, but do it your way.
Yeah, do it your way. You don't have to follow this exact playbook, right? It's not always be
unapologetically you.
Exactly. So do it your way and always ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Well, thank you for making the drive to Dallas from Pflugerville, not Austin, but Pflugerville. And it's I thought this discussion was very productive. So thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And if you guys want to find us, you can find us on Instagram at Higher Innovation, or our website, just higherinnovation.com.
Sounds good. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Yeah, thank you.